With NFL teams losing players left and right to the war, there was a shortage of talent. And I mean a real shortage. Remaining players included a receiver who was blind in one eye, a partially deaf lineman, and a running back with ulcers. People who were not medically fit to fight. However, President Franklin Roosevelt told MLB owners to continue playing to give the country a sense of normality during very unnormal times. The NFL was not relevant at the time, so they didn't get a letter, but they did choose to also continue operations. With over 600 players and coaches joining the military, teams had to recruit retired players back and lifted age restrictions, with a baseball team even signing a 15-year-old pitcher. The Bears held a trial and signed anyone who could run around the practice field twice. Despite such efforts, there were still empty roster spots. Two teams that were suffering, the rival Eagles and Steelers. The Cleveland Rams had already shut down for the year, so losing the Steelers and the Eagles would have left the league with only 7 teams, and could have led to the NFL folding as well. The Steelers only had 6 players under contract, the Eagles had 16. So the league approved a merger. The Steagles, officially known as the Phil Pitt Combine. I prefer Eilers. A mascot of an eel maybe? No? Okay. At least it wasn't the Steelers and Raiders merging, right? The two teams had a combined record of 13, 65, and 7, so it wasn't going to be a super team. The Steelers had just completed their first winning season in franchise history, and the Eagles had never had a winning season up to this point. Both teams were formed 10 years prior in 1933. But it's not as simple as saying, okay, now we're one team. They first had to decide where to play. Most games were played in Philly, with a couple in Pittsburgh. What about coaching? Well, they decided to co-coach. Yeah, great idea. Earl Greasy Neal, the Eagles head coach, was supposed to control the offense, and Walt Kiesling of the Steelers was to coach the defense. But they hated each other, so they just spent most of the year fighting. But even after combining the two teams, the Steagles were still short on players, and that's why they had that receiver who was blind in one eye, a partially deaf lineman, and a running back with ulcers. This prompted the NFL to get involved, who convinced the Redskins to trade their backup quarterback, Ray Zimmerman, for pennies on the dollar. He was definitely worth just pennies, as he finished the season with a 34.7 completion percentage, 846 total passing yards, 9 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. The ground game was more effective, with lead rusher on the team, Jack Hinkle, amassing 571 yards, just 1 yard shy of the NFL rushing title. According to NFL Films, in the Steagles' second game of the year, Hinkle was not credited for a 37-yard run that was mistakenly given to his teammate. That would have given him the rushing title, but it was never officially changed, and tackle Vic Sears and guard L.B. Schultz were selected to All-Pro teams. They also had star receiver Bill Hewitt, who would be inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1971, but he quit midway through the season. And this was because some people were criticizing the players. They would say, if they can play football, why can't they fight in the war? Well, that wasn't fair. These men wanted to fight, but the army deemed them unfit for various medical reasons. The Eagles would get off to a hot start, beating the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants at home. They beat the Giants 28-14, despite having 2 punts blocked, throwing 3 interceptions, and fumbling an NFL record 10 times. Don't ask me how they won that. At 5-3-1, the Steagles had a chance to win the division, but they fell to the Packers in the final game, finishing 5-4-1. If you want to count it, which I don't think you really can, the Steelers got their second winning season and the Eagles got their first. You have to give it to them though. Despite a lackluster team, 2 head coaches, and 2 rivals merging into one, they finished with a winning record. The Steagles would split the following season. The Eagles went 7-1-2, but the Steelers would partner with the Chicago Cardinals to form the Card Pits. Although they wouldn't be as successful as the Steagles, fans would call them Carpets, as everybody walked all over them. They went 0-10 that season.